Nissans that seem appealing, right? They look very modern. This is a 2009, well, I just put in old Nissan Rogue. I'm not familiar with Nissan generations and stuff, but I am familiar with what we're talking about today, luckily. So this is the first generation Nissan Rogue, and you see these, and it's priced very nicely. This is also a first generation Nissan, what's it called? Murano. Nissan Murano. I forgot Murano. And these both have something in common. Now, when looking at these vehicles, you may think, it's a good deal. You know, it looks very modern. It looks just very nice. And, you know, just clean. Nice and clean. The paint looks nice. The back looks nice. The car looks nice. Leather seats. And you get all of that and more for $6,000. You know, that seems really, you know, appropriate. And this one's slightly newer, but also $11,000. You know, Nissans are generally cheaper than a lot of other Japanese brands, which means they're very compelling, right? You see them, you see that they're cheap, you see that they look like, if they look like Hyundais or Kias, which is either weird and bubbly or ugly and sharp, you probably won't want something like that. But, you know, it's a Nissan. It looks reasonable, it acts reasonable, and when you test drive it, you're probably going to like it. But do not buy these. I have a specific reason. I'm going to convince you by the end of this video never to touch an older Nissan. I don't care if it's your friends or don't touch it. Don't buy it. Don't drive it. No, just bad. This CVT transmission. I'm sure anyone here that has ever, you know, seen a car before has heard of a CVT transmission, or also known as a continuously variable transmission. Now, CVTs work in a very weird way of shifting their gear ratios by moving this little band. So, a traditional automatic transmission, imagine it like gears. It does a bunch of gear moving, clicking, oil. That's why it needs so much oil, a lot of moving metal together to change gear ratios in order to take the output from your engine and then put that faster or slower, most times, depending on what you need it for. The CVT can automatically adjust itself based on several different options, right? It's never the same gear, right? With this, it has like fixed gear ratios, right? That, you know, like when you're shifting, this is an automatic, but for manuals, you know, shifting, engine revving, going faster, but still the engine's revving the same amount. Transmission, that's all your transmission right there, right? CVT transmissions constantly change. That's why they're called continuously variable transmissions, because the gear ratio on a CVT is never the same as an automatic transmission, which, let's say, you know, your engine power goes down for a little bit, the CVT will shift up to a higher gear. You know, meanwhile, your automatic transmission will be a lot less keen to just all of a sudden shift gears just because your engine's, you know, not going as fast, right? So, Nissan CVTs, right? What's the issues with CVTs? Why are they bad, and why should you avoid them? Well, there's a difference here. There's a very subtle, minute difference here. And that's that Nissan uses the, air quotes, xtronic CVT, the xtronic CVT. So, you know, I'm sure we've all seen, you know, Toyotas, they also have CVT transmissions. Is that an issue? Kind of, sort of, maybe not. So a lot of people on the internet seem to think that CVTs are the Satan of cars, right? They're the worst thing to ever happen, and I disagree. I have a CVT in both my cars, and quite frankly, they're both fine. They're both completely fine transmissions. I've not had issues with them, just change the oil, which I do very frequently, like every 30,000 miles, I believe. The older cars, they tell you sparse amounts. You know, as they get older, just give it more fluids, change it out more. A conventional CVT, this is what is in your Honda, this is what is in your Toyota. Just average, you know, high oil drive pulley, you know, driven pulley. Just very simple, interesting stuff, right? And then we can see the next gen xtronic CVT, engine transmission oil, you know, down a little bit. And this is what they claim. They claim it is an increased distance between the transmission oil and pulley, which decreases friction. So these have a, you know, 6-point ratio coverage. This is a 7-point ratio coverage, better fuel economy, and much better friction reduction, which is what you want. So why are these, you know, supposedly better CVTs worse than your bargain bin Honda or Toyota CVT? The answer is very complex, and it's a very definite maybe, kind of, sorta. Now, Toyota and Honda have done similar things to the xtronic, air quotes. That's just how Nissan brands it, CVT. Remember, CVTs are very hard to talk about. They almost always vary with brand, and it's impossible. You know, if this is like comparing Tostitos pizza rolls to like Amy's or whatever, that's easy, right? You can just, you know, tell the differences. It's, you know, objective. This is subjective. There are just so many different versions. It's just hard to track them down. Even differences between like Honda and Toyota. So while they do implement the same things as Nissan CVTs, they don't fail at the same rate. Why? Because Nissan is just unreliable. And I have proof to back this up. This is actually, one answer here is very wrong. The Toyota and Honda CVTs are the only CVT transmissions you should buy. Why? Because Toyota and Honda design and manufacture their own CVTs. The Toyota CVT is used in the most reliable car ever, the Toyota Corolla. So your CVT is safe. It's just these stupid Nissans. And if you're wondering who makes the Nissan CVT, it's also kind of a definite sort of maybe. Now, Nissan USA officially makes the xtronic CVT. You know, they call it the xtronic, even though it's really only used in Nissan vehicles. Anyway, so, yeah, just very weird kind of. And, you know, why I say that's kind of weird, like who makes it? Nissan makes it, but it was developed in the late 1990s with Jetco. Jetco is a company that makes like transmissions and environmental solutions, quote unquote, environmental solutions for company to create concrete test cylinders. Remember, this is whatever the hell this is supposed to be. So I find it to be accurate information. I just use this because it's just me, you know, zooming in on a thing. So I might as well zoom in on the prettiest thing here, you know. So kind of interesting, you know, Nissan developed it with this, and that's just kind of how it works. There's also, again, another thing, the xtronic and the Nissan CVT, which are kind of the same thing. Yeah, so again, Toyota CVT and xtronic or Nissan CVT, just very, very different. So, we already know that xtronic CVTs are different from Toyota and Honda's CVTs, right? So essentially, just avoid the Nissans. Other CVTs can be great. In fact, what are the pros and cons of CVTs? Well, we've got it here. Pros of using a CVT. Automakers are using CVTs for several reasons. This is Carfax. A CVT can get the maximum power out of a small engine for quicker and more responsive acceleration. If you've ever watched the RCR in the Nissan Altima, you'll then know what he's talking about. You'll often find CVTs in used vehicles with fuel-efficient four-cylinder engines. This is happening a lot. You know, we're seeing less V8s and V6s replaced with teeny-weeny V4s that have so much crap strapped to them just to get them to make a similar amount of power. It's ridiculous. Like, the Subaru, the all-new Subaru Wilderness has a, Subaru Onyx Edition has a turbo four-cylinder, of course, with the CVTs, right? So, because the CVT is better at fuel efficiency, and believe it or not, CVTs are actually faster than manual and automatic transmissions. Like I said, it can constantly vary depending on where the engine's at, right? They're communicating with each other. So, you know, it's just, that's why we're seeing them, right? They can meet emission standards with the four-cylinder, then strap on a turbo to make it faster, slightly, maybe, kind of, and then slap on a CVT to make it feel faster when you're driving it, right? Cons of using a CVT. Some drivers find the sensation of continuous acceleration without shift points to be unnerving. If you like sportier driving or the absence of fixed gears can make downshifting and upshifting feel less engaging. You know, I may be way out on a limb here. I might just be the dumbest person in the world. I may just be the stupidest person in the world, but when I'm driving my car, I'm driving my car just somewhere. So for me, yes, I've driven in, like, you know, my family, we had a Honda, and whenever it would shift, you could feel it, right? The sensation, even, you know, driving it through high school and stuff like that, right? It wasn't really unnerving to me, you know, it felt like I'm driving a car. Oh, well, you know, I like the sensation of driving faster and sportier cars, but I just like everyday cars. I think they're so cool just to appreciate what we already have than, you know, the newest, craziest thing. Another common complaint is CVTs, drone loudly during acceleration. That's often because it forces the engine to run at high, consistent RPM as the vehicle speeds. Yeah, there's also CVTs require a special CVT transmission fluid. There's different transmission fluids depending on what type of like you may have seen, like if you drive a Ford Focus automatic, you need to put manual transmission fluid in it because it is essentially a manual with an automatic shift component to it, deals with the clutch and all that, which is cheap, but it works. So yeah, CVTs also require special transmission fluid. It's not that, it's expensive, but it's not that expensive, you know, and if the CVT is worth buying and halfway decent, it's worth it anyway. So, yeah, that's why Nissan CVTs suck so much. Essentially, Nissan is just, I really don't want to be this mean, but incompetent, really incompetent. They, you know, the CVTs sounded like a great idea, right? And initially when Nissan developed these, they were fine. And then they just kept adding more crap and crap and crap to them, and it just, just kind of ended up being a big pile of crap in the end. So with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and there is your official answer from me.